I'm Luke Story. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. I always say that nature is the ultimate biohack, and it most certainly is, but I'm also a big fan of technologies that harness the powers of nature and bring them into your home. So every morning for the past 3 years, I've been using a Joovv for about 10 to 15 minutes every morning, sometimes even twice a day. And I've seen a huge boost in my testosterone levels. I have way less pain and inflammation, and my skin complexion at 49, currently at the time of this recording, has never been clearer. So natural light from a Joovv supercharges the mitochondria in your cells so your body can make more energy. It's got all sorts of health benefits, and they're all backed up by thousands of peer-reviewed clinical studies. The testosterone increase specifically has been one of the biggest wins for me. I've got higher T levels now than I did in my early 40s, which is super cool. And Joovv is the #1 red light brand therapy for a reason. Their devices are super dope looking. They're sleek. They're super powerful. They're FDA cleared. They come in modular configuration, so you can kind of build them as you go. They have all sorts of different sizes. You can put them anywhere. They're just freaking amazing. And I'd also like to point out that newer research is also showing red light therapy is great for improving women's hormone health, like thyroid regulation. So if you're a woman and you're hearing this, like, I don't want more testosterone. No, you really do, because this helps with cellulite. It helps with skin blemishes and absolutely helps to balance your hormones. So it's a win for all of the genders. It's freaking amazing. So I'd love for you guys to check it out. Get over to joovv.com/Luke. That's JOOVV.com/Luke. Once you're over there at joovv.com/Luke, you're going to see a special bonus the Joovv team is giving away to all of my listeners. So use the code Luke at checkout. One last time, that's joovv.com/Luke, and use the code Luke at checkout. If you were lucky enough to hear episode 175 with Carly Stein, then you're going to perfectly understand why I'm so excited to tell you about Beekeepers Naturals, the best bee product company in the world. If you missed 175, I'm going to encourage you right now to go back and check it out. Now, I've been into bee products for a long time. I take propolis, the bee pollen, the honey, the royal jelly, all of that. But it's kind of a guessing game when you go to the health food store to figure out which one's the best, which one's really organic. Does that even mean anything? Turns out not so much in many cases. But when it comes to a company like Beekeepers Naturals, you know that you are getting the most pure and most potent bee products on the planet, and that the bees are being protected and taken care of. Now, a lot of people just use bees for their amazing products and kind of abuse them, to be honest, not to get crazy here. I mean, I know it's only a little bee, but they're a crucial part of our entire ecology on planet Earth. So not only taking from the bees is important, but giving back to the bees is equally as important. And Beekeepers Naturals does that. But more than anything, just straight up, they make the best tasting and the most powerful bee products on the market. So I'd really love for you to get over there and check them out. You can find them at beekeepersnaturals.com. That's beekeepersnaturals.com. If you use the code Lifestylist, you will save 20% off your order. If you're just starting out over there and you don't know what to get, I'm going to recommend that you try Bee Powered, because that's got all of the superfoods from the hive in one jar. It's delicious. It's super potent. And I'm on this stuff almost every day. I can't have it every day because then I go through a jar in like 4 days because I'm just nuts like that. But this stuff is just absolutely insanely powerful and pure. And it's tested for pesticides and toxins. It's clean. It's legit. So go to beekeepersnaturals.com. Use the code Lifestylist to save 15%. Welcome to another community Q&A solo show. This is number 301. I want to remind you before we dive into this episode, I am not offering medical advice, and I recommend that you check with a professional before undergoing any alternative or experimental therapy. So I'm just sharing my own experience and things I've learned along the way after recording 300 of these podcasts. The questions that I'm going to be answering were taken from our Facebook group. I'd love for you to join. It's called the Lifestylist Podcast Facebook group. It's a private group. Hop into Facebook, search for us. You'll find us, request to join. We'll let you in. There's an amazing community of like-minded people in there until we all find a less censored place to hang out. But for now, we're there. I'd also like to let you know that each and every week, you can get the show notes from episodes just like this one directly in your inbox by going to lukestory.com/newsletter, plus links to all the products mentioned, often discount codes, and of course, links to the complete transcripts. A lot of people don't realize that every word of this podcast, Good, Bad, and Ugly, is transcribed and available at my site. And you can get that again by going to lukestory.com/newsletter, where every week I will send you an email of the new podcast. Here's what we talk about in this episode. Man, I hope I can get this all in. I was contemplating the potential length of this. I like to keep these to an hour. I never do. I always think it's just 10 questions. Like I can get through that in 15 minutes, and it usually takes 90. But I'm going to go ahead and read the intended list of topics that I want to cover today. Microdosing, low iron, or what I suspect might be, in fact, iron toxicity, the chiliPAD breakdown for next level sleep, eating raw liver, the verdict on hydrogen water, nutrient IV therapy, back pain hacks, detox protocols, fall immunity, and hypnotherapy meditations. So this show is mostly based on the physical realm. And I'm happy to answer these questions, but I would encourage people in the Facebook group and anyone that submits questions to the show through there to get into some deeper work. And I'm sure people are doing that, but they just don't tend to ask questions about that. And I'm happy to talk about physical health because, of course, the physical vessel and the capacity for higher realms of consciousness is really important. And I'm someone who takes great care of my health and feel pretty damn good most of the time. But I have to say that the inner work has really been what's transformed my life in terms of meditation, mindfulness, spiritual practices, yoga, plant medicines, being sober. I know I just said those two in the same sentence. I'll talk about it on another show. In my case, they are related. So before we get into the questions, let's talk about next week's insanely cool episode. It's called Old Soul, Present Mission, Healing Past Life Trauma with Psychic Ainsley McLeod. I first heard Ainsley on Oprah Winfrey's podcast. That's right. Oprah and I are sharing guests now. It's no big deal. And he's just a fantastic guy. And I finally was able to track him down and make it happen. So speaking of doing the inner work and things on the spiritual, metaphysical plane, next week's episode will definitely not disappoint. Make sure you subscribe to the Lifestylist Podcast so you don't miss the upcoming episode with Ainsley McLeod or any episodes to follow. Thank you. Let's dive in. The first question is from Cindy in the Facebook group. Cindy says, I'm wanting to do some mushroom microdosing and realize the source and quality is very important. Does anyone know of a reputable place where I could purchase this online? I thought this was a really cute question because she's in the Facebook group saying, hey, I want to buy illegal drugs. Can anyone point me in the right direction? Maybe someone in the group was kind enough to DM Cindy. Obviously, I have my sources, and they, unfortunately, at the time of this recording in 2020, must remain anonymous. But there are people out there, and even some blossoming companies that are trying to get ahead of the curve of legislation that are developing, microdose formulas. In fact, I use one myself. It's got all of the medicinal mushrooms, niacin, and a psilocybin variety called, what's it called? Albino A+. And it is good stuff, let me tell you. But, it was a friend of a friend, that kind of thing. Like, I know a guy. It's hard if you don't know a guy, or in some cases, maybe a girl. I don't think I've ever bought mushrooms off a woman, though. Maybe unless I was really drunk at a Grateful Dead show in the 90s, and I don't remember it. But it's usually I know a guy. And so I do, but sadly, I cannot share at this point in time. But perhaps someone listening can get in the Facebook group and contact Cindy on one of the confidential apps like Telegram that are encrypted and not monitored, like the demonic WhatsApp, which was purchased by Facebook and is censored. I'm always trying to get around the censors. I don't know, call it the rebel in me or call it someone who just likes their autonomy and personal freedom. On to Cindy's answers. So for those of you that don't know what she's talking about, by the way, we're not talking about getting a psychedelic experience going with microdosing. We're really talking about microdosing, not macrodosing. So a typical psychoactive dose of psilocybin mushrooms, depending on the strength, could be anywhere from 1 to 7 grams. My personal range of choice is around 5 to 7 grams if I'm doing it in a ceremonial way and have an intention to do it, which is the only time I would personally take a psychoactive dose of mushrooms. However, the microdose is anywhere between 1/10 of a gram or 2/10 of a gram. So if you imagine, like, if you take a gram of any mushrooms, you're going to be definitely feeling it. And that's not the goal with microdosing. It's a really subtle cognitive benefit. And I enjoy it probably about 3 to 4 days a week. I try to stagger the days. If you microdose too often, you build up a tolerance, and it's kind of a law of diminishing return situation. So there's a very specific schedule. You can find them online. People have developed the different blends and the different days on and days off. There's quite a few different protocol. I don't know if there's one right way, but I definitely enjoy it. So in terms of Cindy's question, it's a tough one to answer. However, there is currently much research underway to prove its many benefits. A lot of people make claims about the benefits, like growing new neurons, and some scientists debate that. So I don't know what's going on for sure, but I know it makes me feel good and my brain works really well, and it's great for creative and focus work. There's also a lot of legislative action moving toward legalization. It's even, I think, lost its criminality status in places like Oakland and maybe Colorado or Boulder, Colorado, something like that. I'm not up on the laws per se, but I have a feeling it's going to go the way of cannabis, hemp, where you see all these CBD products on the market. I'm guessing that at some point we're going to have the commercial availability of psilocybin products, and God help us if we don't, because I think they could be a really powerful healing resource for so many people, including the members of government. Every time I take ayahuasca, I think, God, if we could just get all the world leaders to do this on a regular basis, we'd have a completely different planet. They'd see their shadow and they would go hide somewhere probably. But as of now, Cindy, unfortunately, psilocybin mushrooms are illegal almost everywhere that I'm aware of. Of course, places like Amsterdam, you can get mushroom truffles and all of that. But in the United States, it's kind of an underground thing. So the best thing you can do is just ask around. Many people grow shrooms at home these days. Back in the day, kids would go out into the cow pastures in the spring and pick mushrooms and sell them, and they'd probably be moldy and full of all kinds of weird stuff, but we'd still eat them. Nowadays, a lot of people are growing them at home. You can also seek out online forums. You can find like-minded people in your community that are into plant medicines, consciousness, etc. I would recommend sound baths, breathwork classes, places where the new age hippies kind of roll. And it's likely that you'll meet someone that can provide you with a connection. There are even psilocybin and mushroom kits that you can buy, just psilocybin mushroom kits that you can buy online. And from what I understand, I've seen it done. It looks pretty complicated in terms of growing them, but it is possible. I would recommend checking out this link, doubleblindmag.com, and they've got an online course about how to grow mushrooms yourself. They might even have some clues as to where you get the spores to start your little closet mushroom farm. It doesn't use much energy or space, unlike trying to grow a cannabis indoors, which can, I think, get you flagged for the high electric bill, and then you could get raided or something, so they say. But that would not be the case with growing mushrooms. And when you do find them, Cindy, I always recommend adding lion's mane and a small dose of niacin with that psilocybin, which is a formula made popular by Paul Stamets, someone I hope to get on the show someday. And speaking of Paul Stamets, there's a fantastic film, ironically called Fantastic Fungi. Amazing documentary, very well made, very high production value. Paul Stamets is, I guess, ostensibly the star of that film, and it is just absolutely fascinating about all things mushrooms, not just psychedelic mushrooms. So best of luck with that, Cindy. Let me know how it goes, and hopefully you're able to find someone that is, reliable and legally trustworthy, etc. Again, not offering legal advice. No, you know what I'm saying, guys. You get it, right? Next question's from Maya. She says, hey, lifestylist, what would you recommend for low iron? Not interested in iron supplements for various reasons. That's a really smart move. there. Good job, Maya. Thanks for your wisdom and input. So I'll do my best to provide some wisdom here. I don't have a lot of experience with iron other than I know for men being too high in iron is a problem. So I regularly give blood, I'd say every quarter or so to bring down my iron, ferritin levels, etc. I would recommend absolutely researching the work of Dr. Morely Robbins and consider doing his root cause protocol. And you can see the show notes with a link for his iron toxicity post. He's been on a ton of podcasts. Hopefully he'll be on here now that you reminded me. I'd also study the work of Ray Peatand, and I've included a link in the show notes to a great article he did about the common misconceptions around iron. Depending on which type of doctor has determined that you need more iron, Maya, the only way I'm aware to naturally get more of it is in red meat, cooked on the rare side. You can also take liver capsules, like beef liver capsules, which I'll talk about shortly in one of the other questions. But to my understanding, there is a lot of misinformation around what healthy iron levels are. There are different types of iron. There's different ways that it appears in your tissues versus in your blood. It's very complex. And I would say that your average Western allopathic doctor, as brilliant and well-meaning as many of them are pretty outdated in terms of the science on iron. And due to the fact that much of our food since, I don't know, maybe the 50s or so has been fortified with iron, which is an oxymoron because it's really been made toxic by iron that is not bioavailable. Most human beings are, in fact, iron toxic, too much iron. Now, women, of course, can be different because of the fact that they bleed monthly. In most cases at least. But even then, I would definitely look into the Morely Robbins situation. I think he is the guy. If I was having iron issues, I would probably not trust anyone but him. Ray Peatand doesn't really specialize in iron per se, as does Morely, who Morely, by the way, is also an expert on minerals. Just absolutely brilliant guy. But those are the two that I would look to. All right, next Mark says, does your OOLER, or this is a funny one, does your OOLER or chiliPAD ever create wet spots on your sheets? And it's so hard for me, Mark, to answer this question with a straight face because you know the direction I want to go with this, but I won't. I will keep it clean for the kids. He's referring to two different products made by a company called Chili Technology, and these guys make just fantastic devices that either cool or heat your bed underneath you. And the way they work is it's a very thin, is it a mattress pad? Yeah, I guess you could say a mattress pad. It's, probably a quarter-inch thick, half-inch thick or something at most. And that goes under your fitted sheet. Then there is a cooling/heating unit that goes across the room with a tube. And that tube sends hot or cold water, cold in most cases, hence the name chiliPAD or OOLER, like cooler without the C. It sends the water into silicone veins in a similar way to an electric blanket, but electric blankets are incredibly toxic in terms of EMF exposure. I would highly discourage anyone that is sane and cares about their health to never, ever use an electric blanket. You could get a chiliPAD and an OOLER or an OOLER. The OOLER is like the fancier version of the chiliPAD. It's got a lot more settings and timers and all kinds of bells and whistles, which I really like. But rather than having wires underneath you causing EMFs, the chiliPAD and the OOLER are silicone veins of water, and you can choose your temperature. And with the OOLER, you can even choose your timing. I even love this product so much, I did a mini documentary video on both of them, which you can find on my web store. It's also on YouTube. If you just Google Luke Story chiliPAD, you'll probably find the video. At my online store, I often do videos where I do like a 20 to sometimes 30-minute breakdown of these products and make them very educational. So it's not just like a commercial for the product, but really teaches you, in this case, about sleep and sleep temperatures and things like that. So I am a massive fan of these devices from Chili Technology, and I literally could not live without them. In fact, I travel with my chiliPAD on road trips, unless I'm going to the mountains in the winter or something. And even when I fly to hot climates, I take the chiliPAD with me in my suitcase. I know I'm nuts, but I'm like actually addicted to having the mattress be cold. If the mattress gets hot, my sleep sucks. And when my sleep sucks, my life sucks. So I do everything I possibly can to stay cold while I'm sleeping. And the chiliPAD and the OOLER work for that. Now, in terms of wet spots, my man, Um, I've had wet spots in the bed for a number of different reasons, which I will not discuss in this episode. However, I have never experienced any wetness whatsoever from the chiliPAD or the OOLER. So I suspect it's coming from someone's body, or you've got a hole or a rip in one of your pads. So I would recommend calling Chili Technology. They have great customer service, and just say, hey, can I exchange the pad that goes on the bed? Because I'm sure your condenser unit, the machine that actually makes the water hot and or cold, is fine. Otherwise, that would be the complaint. But it's possible maybe there's a puncture in it. Your dog might have bitten it, or who knows what happened. You take it out of the box. Maybe you used a box cutter and sliced a little hole in one of the water veins. I'm imagining if the liquid is coming from that they'll be able to take care of it for you. The pad itself is not the expensive part, so I'm sure it's not a big deal. I've replaced them when I got different sized beds and things like that. Okay, next we've got Michelle. Michelle says, do you eat liver? If so, which types? Beef, chicken, how often? I actually love liver for its nutrient value, but I can't stand the taste. So I'll tell you how I take it in a minute. In terms of the types, I'm not really a huge fan of eating any type of stuff that comes from chickens. I don't know, call me weird. I don't really gravitate toward eating birds. If I'm going to eat something animal-wise, it's generally going to be beef or sustainable raw fish. I get my grass-fed raw liver from a farm in Bakersfield. It's called Covenant Farms. And what I do is I order a quarter steer, and it is in my freezer in the garage. I did this for the first time at the beginning of the plandemic, because at that time I didn't know if it was a real pandemic. And so I went into prepper mode and bought like tanks of gas and ammunition and those sorts of things. And one of the things I bought was a quarter steer. I called them to make sure that they don't, spray glyphosate on the fields or anything weird. They test the meat for pesticides. It's absolutely the cleanest, most humane slaughter, all that stuff. They really treat the animals well. They treat the land well. It's a really cool farm. So shout out to them. And when you order a quarter steer from a rancher directly, it automatically comes with organ meats, unless you tell them like, no, keep it. But why would I do that? Because it's so nutritious. If you don't live in California, that's not going to be, useful for you, or even in Central or Southern California. So I don't think if you're up north, you'd want to go there, perhaps, because you could find, I'm sure, a rancher up there, like a small farm. So another great source is belcampo.com. Again, that's in the show notes. I've been to their farm. I've interviewed the founder. Very clean operation, humane, grass-fed, grass-finished, all organic, the highest standards of USDA, humane slaughter, all that stuff. I even went to the slaughterhouse. Like, I used to be a vegetarian, so it's a whole other story, but I'm very particular about where I get animal products. And I eat it. Actually, I ate at Belcampo today. Well, it was delivered, but I had the steak salad. It's called the Superman salad with grass-fed beef, avocado. It was insane. When I have the time and energy, I cut my liver into little cubes and then freeze it. So this way I can always just like pop them as little pills periodically throughout the week. Although when they're in the freezer, I kind of forget. If I leave them in the fridge, I don't eat them fast enough. It's a whole process, you know what I mean? But that's one way to do it. You always want to make sure the source of your liver is grass-fed and grass-finished. There's a lot of mislabeling with grass-fed. There are some scams there because they'll feed the cow grass for 3 days and then have it eat GMO corn and soy the rest of the time and then still call it, quote, unquote, grass-fed. Never eat any factory farm animal foods if you can avoid it for environmental, humane, and health reasons. Now, if raw liver is not your jam and you can't take one for the team like I do and just swallow a huge chunk of frozen or even raw liver, I get it. You can take desiccated organ meat capsules from Ancestral Supplements. I've got them linked on my website. I think there might be a discount on there. And they have all of the organs, which is amazing because they're using the whole animal, and that's how we've evolved. Beef liver, by the way, is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet and is rich in so many vital vitamins and minerals. And if you think about it, there's a reason why predatory animals always eat the organs of prey first, then the muscle meat. Sometimes they even abandon the carcass. I'm talking about a lion that kills a gazelle or something, right? They'll just bounce after they eat all of the organ meat, and then the vultures and all of the scavengers come and eat the muscles, ligaments, tendons, etc. So Animals know that the most nutrition are in the organs. Okay, so I've got an example here for the insane amount of nutrition found in a 3.5 ounce, that's 100 grams, serving of grass-fed beef liver. Vitamin B12, 3,460% of the RDA, and B12 helps with the formulation of red blood cells and DNA. It's also involved in healthy brain function. Vitamin A, which, by the way, you can't get from carrots. That's a myth. It's a different kind of vitamin A. It's whack. You don't assimilate it. It's fake news. In vitamin A, you get between 860 and 1,100% of the RDI, recommended daily intake. Vitamin A is important for normal vision, immune function, and reproduction. It also helps organs like the heart and kidneys function properly. Then it's also got riboflavin, vitamin B2, between 210 and 260% of the RDI. And riboflavin is important for cellular development and function. It also helps turn your food into energy. And it's got folate, which is vitamin B9, 69% of the RDI. Folate is essential in that it plays a role in cell growth and the formation of DNA. And speaking of iron, grass-fed beef liver has 80% of the RDI, or 35% for women of menstruating age. And iron is another essential nutrient that helps carry oxygen around the body. And the iron in liver is heme iron, the kind most easily absorbed by the body. That's why the iron put in our old childhood 70s and 80s cereals and breads, and actually they still do it, it's ridiculous, is like iron ore. It's like a metal, it's not meant for consumption. It drives me nuts. They've really done a disservice to humanity by putting that shit in food. Next nutrient in liver is copper, bioavailable copper. Now this is really hard to find in other food sources. Beef liver has 1,620% of the RDI. And copper acts like a key to activate a number of enzymes, which then help regulate energy production, iron metabolism, and brain function. So one of the questions here is about, having low iron, and it's likely, in my opinion, having to do with the low copper level. So you're not metabolizing iron. Then one of my favorite nutrients in the world, choline. Liver provides all of the adequate intake. So 100% of what's needed for women and nearly all of it for men. And choline is important for brain development and your own liver function. So rather than taking a bunch of supplements with all of those things, I'm always for taking the real deal that comes from nature. And as I said, if you don't want to eat organ meats, you can get capsules from Ancestral Supplements, which are in my web store. Really great company, all grass-fed, the whole 9 yards, super legit. Next question is from Erin. She says, hydrogen water, yay or nay? It seems the human research on it is pretty sparse, so any anecdotal experiences would be welcome. I take hydrogen tablets made by Vital Reaction every single day, one of my go-to supplements. I've also used the Vital Reaction hydrogen inhaler for years, also on a daily basis. It's great for mental clarity. Another great product is the Hydro Shot, which is a line of canned hydrogen drinks, some of which contain CBD and amino acids and other complementary nutrients, which enhance the potency of hydrogen. And contrary to Erin's belief, there's actually a grip of human research in the show notes here, courtesy of the Molecular Hydrogen Research Institute. In fact, it's one of the most studied molecules in the world. So I'd recommend that you listen to episode 112 featuring Tyler W. LeBaron, one of the world's top experts on hydrogen. He's also the scientist and researcher behind Molecular Hydrogen Research Institute, which again is linked in the show notes. And he's nonpartisan. He doesn't have financial interest in any of the hydrogen companies, so he's a great neutral source and is an absolute genius when it comes to the science on hydrogen. And as I said, I use it constantly, especially on flights due to its powerful antioxidant capacity. It also helps protect against EMF exposure due to its ability to reduce oxidative stress and scavenge free radicals, which is one of the main ill effects of EMF exposure. Dr. Joseph Mercola has explained this in many interviews. You can find them online. It's also a really potent anti-inflammatory. And I have to say, if I could only use maybe 5 supplements for the rest of my life, this would definitely be on the list. It's one that I would refuse to go without. And I'll be recording a show with a gentleman named Robert Slovak next week in Mexico, and we will cover hydrogen at depth, so you can stay tuned for that future episode. We'll be right back at you after this brief but important announcement. This plug is so easy to do because I love chocolate. I love this product called Cacao Bliss. So this podcast is brought to you by Danette May and Mindful Health LLC, featuring Danette May's top superfood product from her Earth Echo Foods line, Cacao Bliss. This is guilt-free decadence with the purest cacao on the planet. You know, cacao is the bliss molecule, right? So this drink is an amazing superfood blend that gives you natural energy, mental clarity, and also reduces inflammation. So this is like having a dessert that's good for you. And not only that, it's paleo, gluten-free, keto, vegan, and vegetarian all at once. I mean, how do you even do that? For the past 8 years, Earth Echo has been a leader in the superfoods market and are proud to have served millions of customers worldwide, including yours truly. Now, the reason I love Cacao Bliss is because of the ingredient deck, the sourcing and the combination of everything in it, right? It's got Himalayan salt, which has got 84 minerals and trace elements. It's got mesquite. It's a really sweet, nutty superfood. It's got lucuma, which adds a hint of caramel-like flavor and has wound healing properties. Coconut nectar, which is a great prebiotic. Monk fruit, which doesn't spike your blood sugar but satisfies your sweet tooth. Cinnamon to improve your body's ability to digest glucose and reduce your desire for sugary treats. MCT powder to help you feel satiated longer. It's a really healthy fat. Fills you up. And black pepper to maximize the results and bioavailability of the turmeric. And then, of course, the ceremony grade raw cacao. So this is a fantastic product called Cacao Bliss. You can get yourself some over at earthechofoods.com/LukeStory. That's earthechofoods.com/LukeStory. If you want to hook up 15%, I got it for you. The code is Luke15 at earthechofoods.com/LukeStory. And now back to the interview. The next question is from DT. D-I-T-T-E, Ditty. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Hopefully I got it close on one of those tries. She says, question for Luke from your IG posts and stories. Hey, Ditty. Thank you so much for following me on Instagram. If you guys want to do the same, you can find me at Luke Story. I post a ton of what I hope is inspiring and engaging information and, in the form of my stories, IG Lives. As a matter of fact, I'm doing an IG Live right now as I record the solo episode. So y'all could have been watching it in all its uncensored glory. So follow me at Luke Story. And she says, it doesn't look like you do that much IV vitamin therapy. Is that correct? If so, why? So she might be new to my Instagram, but I've actually done a lot of lives and a lot of stories and even some feed posts because I love nutrient IVs. Now, I don't always post my treatments on Instagram. Frankly, it's hard to use your phone with a drip in your arm, so I don't always capture it. But sometimes I bring a tripod and I'll do a live on Instagram while I'm getting an IV. Sounds like she missed those. I did also once record an entire podcast with an IV in my arm, which you can hear on episode 181 featuring Lily Coonan. And that show was focused on IVs. As a matter of fact, that was episode 181. You can watch the video. I'm sitting there the whole time with a drip in my arm. It was interesting. So the reason one might want to consider IVs is you get much better absorption doing IVs as compared to swallowing pills. It's something like 20% versus 90% bioavailability. So oftentimes when you take tablets and pills, you're spending money on expensive pee because much of the magic is lost in the GI tract, whereas putting it directly into your bloodstream allows those nutrients to enter the cell and reach your entire body and all of your organ systems. I get them most often at a place called Next Health in Los Angeles. They have a couple locations, one in Century City, one on Sunset Boulevard. They are, I would say, the best place you can go in town for the IVs. They are amazing before and after travel and anytime you need an immunity boost. So just by every time I go on a long flight, the morning of or the night before I'm going to fly out of Los Angeles, I'll go get an IV. And then sometimes even on my way back from LAX, I'll stop at Next Health and get one of their many recipes. Now, you can get a bunch of different mixes with all kinds of combinations of nutrients. A lot of the old school clinics still call them a Myers cocktail. So if you live in a smaller town or city and you want to find a clinic or a doc that does this, I would recommend searching Myers Cocktail Clinic. Or you could search vitamin or nutrient IV clinic, IV service, and you might be able to find something where you live. I'm also a huge fan of IV NAD treatments for energy and ATP production specifically. I also get those at Next Health. They are quite an experience. NAD IVs, depending on how fast they go, can be rather uncomfortable, but I breathe through it, and somehow I'm able to make it through. Some people have a harder time than others, but the health benefits are absolutely insane. Speaking of IV, one of the interesting things about it that I just learned on an episode coming out in 2 weeks, number 308 with Dr. Craig Conover, is that NAD treatments are one of the most successful ways to rid people of addictions. I mean, I'm talking like cocaine, heroin, alcohol, cigarettes, the really addictive stuff. NAD is used in a lot of cutting edge treatment centers, et cetera. It has quite a long history of freeing people of chronic addiction, but it's also just really good for energy. In fact, I just injected some into my plentiful belly fat this morning. It's a whole other story. In fact, if you listen to episode 308 that's coming up with Craig Conover, you'll learn all about the self-administered subcutaneous or sub-Q injections that I do about 5 days a week. Woo! We are really steamrolling along here. The next question is from Lori. She says, hey, lovelies, any suggestions for muscle soreness and back pain? Doctors are prescribing naproxen or Advil 600. There has to be a better way. God, I hope so, Lori. I wouldn't want to take that stuff if my life depended on it. Although, when you're in pain, you know what I'm saying, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I have found some solutions because I've suffered from back pain for a long-ass time. I put everything in this answer that I could think of, but there's probably 20 other things that I've tried. I guess I've tried prolotherapy, for example. You're probably going to write into the show, have you tried prolotherapy? Yeah, I literally think I've tried everything. And I appreciate people's suggestions. Don't get me wrong. I know they come out of love, but 99.9% of the time, like, yes, I tried that. It didn't work. But some things that have definitely helped are as follows. There is a kind of a physical therapy program called EGOSCU, spelled EGOSCU, SCUE, EGOSCU, pronounced EGOSCU. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. I've also done something called NSA or Network Spinal Analysis. I recommend listening to the show I did with its creator, Donnie Epstein. That's number 138, again, linked in the show notes. I've been most into something called FRC, or Functional Rain Conditioning, lately by Dr. Andreo Spina. It is absolutely incredible for joint health and mobility, which is usually the source of much back pain. And I'll do a show and treatment protocol with him as soon as I can get up to Canada. It's in the works, so stay tuned for that. Also, personally, I use the Biomat and the Therasage heating pads for pain relief all the time, like literally every day. In fact, last night I went up to the bedroom to go to bed, and it was really quiet in the room, and the bed was empty. I was recording another podcast like this one till about 12:30 a.m., and I went and I was like, where the hell is my girlfriend, Allison? And I look over, and her and the dog and the cat are passed out like on the Biomat, on the couch that we have kind of in the den adjoining the bedroom. And so the Biomat is very healing, as is the Therasage. I can't pick one over the other because they both have different qualities and different benefits. I would say the Therasage is a bit cheaper than the Biomat, and it's also easier to travel with, but there is something special about the Biomat. And many people have alluded to the idea that they are both high EMF, and I have tested them, and they do have a little bit of EMF, but not much. They're both shielded, at least the new Biomats are, and so to me, the benefit far outweighs the cost when it comes to healing therapy. And that's not going to heal your back, but it's really good for pain. Next, Dr. Matt Cook in San Jose is doing some amazing work on pain using stem cells, peptides, and all sorts of cutting-edge modalities. He'll be on the show soon as well to discuss his strategies. I'm going to go up and visit him and get a treatment or two and record that. Also, Kundalini Yoga. I've done a number of shows on this with such notable teachers as Guru Jagat, Guru Singh, and Tej Khalsa. Katona yoga is amazing for restructuring your body and getting you into alignment. Listen to episode 89 with Abby Galvin to learn about Katona yoga. Stem cell treatment, of course, there's another episode on that. A lot of times, by the way, with the questions, I'm like, I already did a whole show about it. So that's why I give you, the answer, and in the show notes, the link to the episode, or right now, just telling you the number. Sometimes people are like, listening to this episode and they go, oh, stem cells, I want to know. And they can remember 133. So I went and did a stem cell treatment a couple of years ago in Park City, Utah with Dr. Harry Adelson and Dr. Amy Killen at the Docere Clinic. Again, that's episode 133. And I also had a video crew there which filmed my entire surgery, which included tapping my hip bone for bone marrow stem cells with an ice pick, basically. Amy injected stem cells into my wedding tackle, my nether regions, the private parts. There's a sheet covering that, thankfully. I've never watched the video because it's pretty gory. There's a lot of blood, but it is on YouTube if you want to see some psycho shit. People always ask me, did that stem cell treatment work? I had stem cells put not only in the penile region, but also in my face, in my scalp, in my left shoulder, in my right hip joint, in one of my discs. I had them put all over. And I won't say that it cured me of the back pain, because I really think my back pain is a structural issue, which is what eventually led me to the aforementioned functional range conditioning, because I've sussed out that that's where it's coming from. But the stem cell treatment at Docere Clinics in Park City, Utah did, in fact, help a lot, and it helped with different parts of my body. And I think it really did do something pretty amazing for the below the belt part too, which, is embarrassing to talk about. Not that I needed it. I really didn't need it, I'm being totally honest, but I'm 49 and all is well. I'll just put it that way. Of course, it has a lot to do with my lovely girlfriend. Makes it easy. Way too personal. What am I doing here? Maybe I should delete that part, but I won't, because why? Let's keep it real. Next on the back pain, ice baths are my number one hack for plain. This is what happens at about the 35-minute mark. Start stumbling on words. That's how it goes. My number one hack for everything actually is ice baths. I do them daily, sometimes twice a day. Today I did 2. I could do another one right after this. I'm literally obsessed with getting in the ice water. Call me crazy. If you want to learn how to build the ice bath that I have at home, the whole thing all in probably ran me $1,000, but you can do it much cheaper if you don't put the cover around the freezer and all the bells and whistles. But if you want to learn how I did it, just do a web search of Luke Story ice bath, and you'll find a post that Ben Greenfield did wherein I gave him my entire protocol and all of the links and exactly how I made this really nice looking and quite cost effective compared to some of the professional ice baths on the market whole thing. So you can check that out. You'll also see he posted the Rick Rubin, someone that can afford the badass one. I think Rick's was like $6,000 or $8,000, a professional sports team kind of ice bath. So in that post on Ben Greenfield's site, which again, you can find by Googling Luke Story ice bath, you'll have a range of choices to build your own ice bath. But to me, there's nothing that stops pain and inflammation like getting in some ice. As for those pesky pain medications, I would avoid them at all costs. Personally, pharmaceuticals for me are always the last resort. I'm grateful that they're there. Sometimes you need them, but I find that there's usually a natural alternative. One that I've used a lot myself is called kratom. Some people call it kratom. If you are from Thailand, you'll call it by its real name, which is kratom. It comes in a very potent extract, which, warning, can get you super hammered. Found that out the hard way. It was like a little mini heroin relapse. Not the best feeling in the world, but it does kill pain like an MF. Or you get the regular powder or capsules, which is not adulterated or treated or concentrated in any way. It's literally a ground up leaf from Southeast Asia. It's called kratom. Now, be mindful, again, not to use it. Well, you can do whatever you want, but if you're going to use it not just for pain, but like recreationally or something like that, there is a lot of indication online through the forums and whatnot that it can be very addictive. And I've known 2 people that did go through a couple days worth of withdrawals from playing with the kratom too much. However, as a former and very dedicated opiate addict myself, been done with that for almost 24 years, by the grace of God, literally, I've had no issues with dependency on kratom, but I also have a deep respect for it. It does hit the opiate receptors in your brain. And so for that reason, I take a little at a time. I'm careful not to get high on it by accident or on purpose. Although sometimes it is really nice on a flight or sometime when I know my back is potentially going to be hurting. And I do feel a little psychoactive buzz from it at times. It's definitely been the case. And I don't know, I just feel like my intentions are pure and I'm not doing it to escape my emotional pain or trauma or because I don't like living in my skin. I'm quite happy to be who I am, where I am, when I am most of the time. So I wouldn't personally be in a place in life where I was going to use something like kratom to escape my problems or something like that. So I've been fortunate so far to be able to use it safely, not get addicted, not become dependent on it, and, not find that I'm craving it to use recreationally or something like that. But you've been issued your warning. I do know 2 people personally that got a little bit of a habit with it. In fact, one of them is very close to me. And every once in a while will text me, "Hey, bro, you got any kratom? I'm out, man." And I'm like, "Dude, are you getting a problem?" He's like, "Yeah, kind of, but I'll work it out." And I trust that he will. He's a big boy. So in terms of finding this natural painkiller, there are tons of kratom sites online. Now, some of them are a bit suspect, so I would be very mindful to make sure that they test for mold, heavy metals, contamination, make sure it's not radiated on the way to your country from Southeast Asia, where it's usually imported from. I just checked online a little bit. I forget where I got mine. I actually buy it by the kilo just because it's been almost made illegal by the FDA a few times because it's so effective in getting people off things like pharmaceutical opiates, et cetera. A lot of veterans use it. A lot of people that have had, very severe injuries and things like that, as most, or not most, but many vets have. So the FDA, the powers that be, Big Pharma hates kratom because it's a great substitute for, the Klonopin and Vicodin and what's that one, that really bad one? I forget the name of it. It's the one that China's like dumping on our shores every day. Donald Trump's always talking about banning. God, why can't I remember that? It's the gnarliest one. You know the one I'm talking about. I'll think of it later. I haven't had enough paracetam or sleep or something today. Anyway, be careful where you buy this kratom. Don't get burned. Don't buy it off a shady site. And I kind of recommend doing what I do. If it's something you like to have in your medicine cabinet of herb or plant medicines, just buy a bit of it and stockpile it. That's what I did. I keep it in an airtight container. And literally at the rate I take it, because I take maybe half a teaspoon at a time, I probably have 15 years worth, don't hit me up for it though. If you want to learn more about kratom itself and some of the legal battles that, people are fighting to keep it legal so people can get off dangerous pharmaceuticals, there's a documentary called A Leaf of Faith. Get it? L-E-A-F, A Leaf of Faith. A Leaf of Faith. And you can learn all about kratom and its amazing power as a natural painkiller. Next question is from Avery. She says, or he says, could someone give me a detailed detox protocol? It's for a family friend. She's having a lot of gut issues along with 5 stomach ulcers. I'm looking for a protocol that involves supplementation as well as a diet that goes along with it. Please keep the ulcers in mind when recommending, just in case you are aware of any part of the protocol that could negatively impact the ulcers. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Avery. I've been detoxing, former drug use, heavy metals, parasites, anything you can think of for 2 decades. And in my experience, the best programs I've ever found are as follows. I would say from most simple to most complex. First one being is the Black Box by Quicksilver Scientific. It's the most simple to use. It's a great one to start with. It's honestly like idiot-proof and incredibly effective. You can study the work of Dr. Chris Shade. He's the creator of Quicksilver Scientific, a brilliant PhD, mad scientist. He was on the show on episode 210, which is, by the way, it's about an hour and a half show all about detox. the things that work, the things don't. He debunks like juice fasting and all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting. He's one of the world's leading experts, so I definitely follow his work. Another detox master is Dr. Dan Pompa, who was featured on episode 121. He's got a great program called the Cellular Detox Program on his website. You could buy that and follow that. Both of those cats are my go-to doctors when it comes to detox. Now, for a more hardcore approach, one could consider the L. Ron Hubbard. I know this sounds crazy. It's a thing. The Niacin Sauna 30-Day Protocol, which you can learn more about by watching Dr. George Yu's video lectures. I've linked that in the show notes. There's also a Facebook group led by a guy named Brett Bauer, who also does coaching. And this is who I worked with to do the 30-day program. It was very stringent. There's a lot to it. I mean, it's quite strict. You got to take a bunch of supplements. There's timing involved with when you take the niacin. You build up niacin day by day. You got to exercise. Then you take a sauna for an hour. Well, depending on what type of sauna you have. If you have a standard sauna, like they used at the Scientology drug treatment programs where this originated, be like 5 hours in a wood-fired sauna or electric sauna. But you can do, like an hour in the infrared saunas, like the clear light that I have. And I did before and after testing, and I brought down the lead and mercury in my body like a champ. I mean, massive, massive reduction. So I'm very grateful for the old L. Ron Hubbard detox program. Sounds strange, I know, as most things Scientology are, but it works, and there's actually a lot of science to support it. And if I recall, I did ask Dr. Chris Shade about it and if it made sense to him. And if my memory serves me, he was on board with it. But you'd have a much easier and cheaper time just doing the Black Box by Quicksilver Scientific as a starting point. Okay, the next one is from Priscilla. She says, okay, people, as we're moving into fall and with everything that has been going on, what are you stocking up on? I'm assuming she's talking about my Sharona. I keep hearing about selenium, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, and monolaurin. Now, I'm going to say to her that all of those are great immune supporters. I might add some grass-fed colostrum from Surthrival. There's also an immune formula from Just Thrive, which is fantastic. I think those are the two products I would consider missing from that. I would also add infrared saunas, ice baths, and absolutely putting your focus on quality sleep. Sleep is everything when it comes to everything, but especially immunity. Also, something great for your immune system is avoiding the mainstream media. And for really solid information around the so-called pandemic, there's some really solid research at a website called questioningcovid.com. That's questioningcovid.com. It's in the show notes, where you will find tons and tons of fact-based information from some of the most brilliant scientists and doctors in the world that might perhaps give you a reason to be less afraid around viruses. You can also look forward to the upcoming episode with Dr. Zach Bush, number 304, coming out shortly, wherein he pretty much destroys the official COVID narrative, especially the masks. I mean, like, seriously, guys, honestly. Oh, God. So look forward to the Zach Bush episode and also questioningcovid.com. Don't get me started on that one, but I'm for having a robust immune system all the time, a balanced immune system that is responsive to your environment. I'm a believer in the terrain, not in the germs. I am not afraid of germs. I eat off the ground. I don't let my dog lick me on the mouth because that's another level of germ. I don't want to get direct parasites. But my dog licks me. I don't go wash it off. I am not someone who's afraid of germs. I think that my body has an innate intelligence that God gave it and gave me, and it is a brilliant machine, and it knows how to keep itself safe and protected if I put it in the right environment, feed it the right things, avoid the wrong things. And speaking of immune system, getting a lot of sun, I can't believe I didn't think of that one. That would be my number one. Anytime I start to feel at all funky, and I'm fortunate because I currently live in Southern California where it's sunny 364 days a year, but I immediately get out naked in the sun, as long as I can safely without burning. That's the very first thing I do. And what I find so, well, not really funny, actually, in a judgmental way, it's actually really saddening, is I walk around my neighborhood and it's 90 degrees out, not a cloud in the sky, not even chemtrails these days, which is a nice break. And people walk up and down my street with these really thick masks on. And I'm just going, oh God, like breathe some air, man. Air, oxygen, sun, nature. This is what fuels the immune system. Playing in the dirt, eating food out of your garden that has all of that amazing bacteria on it. You're going to learn all about soil health and your gut biome and the terrain of your body again in episode 304, coming up with Dr. Zach Bush, one of my all-time favorite episodes. We had 2.5 hours of just pure magic, so you can look forward to that. Next question, and this is the last question we're going to do today. All right, not bad. I might just make it in right at 60 minutes. Finally hit the goal of making an hour-long show. Yay for me. Probably because I'm talking very fast. Hopefully you guys can keep up. This question is from someone named Stiff. Stiff says, can anyone recommend an audio hypnotherapy / reprogramming meditation along the lines of what Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza talk about? I would recommend something I did for years. It's called HemiSync. You can get their audio programs. It comes from an institute called the Monroe Institute. And HemiSync stands for Hemispheric Synchronization. You listen to these audio programs and they synchronize your left and right hemisphere, and they are absolutely fantastic. If you can afford it, it's a few $1,000s, but people don't believe me that it's worth it, but it is. I use this thing all the time. In fact, I'm on a plane tomorrow to Mexico for about 3.5 hours, and I will probably use my NuCalm. That's what I'm talking about. NuCalm, NuCalm, for the entire 3 hours. I'll just meditate in this deep theta state the whole time, land, because you got to wear a stupid mask, which I have. All the masks to me are fake that people wear, like wearing a bandana. I mean, no judgment if you're wearing that. If you feel good, good for you. I support you, whatever, helps you to feel safe. I am honestly all for you doing what you want to do, not telling other people what they should do, but do what you want to do. But the mask I have is from the Deuterium Depletion Center. That's ddcenters.com. And you can't, unfortunately, just buy the mask. You have to do their whole thing. But it's a mask used for metabolic health and specifically depleting deuterium. It probably does fuck all to stop viruses, but that's what I'll be wearing on the plane. I'll be depleting my deuterium, listening to my NuCalm tracks. And if you want to learn about NuCalm, it's neuroacoustic therapy. And a guy named Jim Poole was on the show for episode 265, where he explains how this NuCalm meditation kind of hypnotherapy device, what's really an app, and these little stickers you put on your wrist that help you to open your GABA receptors, which make you really calm. He explains how it's used by the military and professional athletes to recover from stress. So that's my number one, but it ain't cheap, put it that way. That's NuCalm, NuCalm. And if you don't want to spring a few grand to get your meditation on in a deep way, there are many cheap or even free binaural beat apps at the App Store. And they work for a time. A lot of them aren't effective as you listen to them over and over again because your brain becomes accustomed to them and they lose that sedative effect. I would also highly recommend the Joe Dispenza meditation MP3s on his site. They are fantastic. I use them just about every damn day. I've been on them for months after going to his live intensive. Joe Dispenza explains how his meditation tracks work on episode 259. That's 259 for Joe Dispenza. And lastly, Stiff, I would recommend actually hiring a hypnotherapist, recording the sessions with that hypnotherapist, and then listening to him later on to self-hypnotize. And I did this for a number of months, and it worked, man. We were going into hypnosis around, making money and bringing in my life partner, soulmate, all that kind of stuff. And I just went along with it. I'm open-minded. I would say I'm an open-minded skeptic. I think there's enough data and research on hypnotherapy that lends it credibility if you have the right therapist. But I didn't know it was going to work. And lo and behold, it seems as though after doing those, maybe 8 sessions or so and recording them and then falling asleep to them later that day and sometimes a few days a week, that something changed in my brain. And I've been more self-realized, and so have my aspirations and manifestations as a result. So that, my friends, brings this community Q&A episode to a close. Thank you so much to the lovely folks in our Facebook group for submitting those questions, really good ones as usual. Please join the Lifestylist Podcast Facebook group if you'd like to submit questions like these and have them answered on a future solo episode. Come join me next week for Old Soul, Present Mission, Healing Past Life Trauma with Psychic Ainsley McLeod. That episode, you guys, is insane. It is so dope. I mean, honestly, not to toot my own horn, I give all credit to the guest, but it was a really deep episode about past lives and spirit guides. And if you're at all into the woo-woo, new age side of things, you're going to love that one. If you're someone who thinks that's all bullshit, you're going to love it even more because dude is absolutely tapped in and on point. Next bit of exciting news is I have, of course, now, as you may have heard, launched my EMF Home Safety Masterclass, and it's only $149. That's $149. It's over 5.5 hours of content. You can watch it on demand whenever you want, for as long as you want, for the rest of your damn life. And it's got 7 modules, 6 bonus videos. It's even got links to a couple of my past EMF shows, just because why not? It's got 4 downloadable, maybe actually by the time you hear this, up to 6 downloadable PDFs with every link to everything you could ever want for EMF. It's absolutely insanely valuable. It's $149. How you get it is as follows. Go to lukestory.com/EMF class. No, wait, that's not it. It's lukestory.com/EMF masterclass. That's lukestory.com/EMF masterclass. And that'll get you in for $149. It's rad. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Cacao Bliss. They're a newer sponsor. You can find them at earthechofoods.com/LukeStory. That's earthechofoods.com/LukeStory. These guys make the most amazing cacao powder that you can make hot elixirs or cold smoothies. You can put in your coffee. It's got all kinds of synergistic herbs, very well sourced, very conscious company. I'm super down to support them. The product I'm talking about is Cacao Bliss from earthechofoods.com/LukeStory. Got you a discount code there of 15% by using the code Luke15. Then, of course, our friends over at Juve. I did, 2 Juve sessions today because I needed it. I needed that mitochondrial support. And you can get your Juve red light therapy on at juve.com/Luke. That's JOOVV.com/Luke. Juve.com/Luke. Red light therapy is one of the most scientifically supported biohacks in the history of the known universe. It's seriously amazing. It seriously works. So if you want great skin, if you want to heal joints, ligaments, tendons, produce more collagen, which is really why your skin is great under red light, and you want to boost your mitochondria power, hence your ATP or energy production, red light therapy is for you, juve.com/Luke. And then we've got beekeepersnaturals.com, the best bee products on the planet. Your code at beekeepersnaturals.com is Lifestylist, and that saves you 15% off. They've got bee pollen, propolis, amazing honey. They've got a CBD honey product, a cacao honey product. They're tested for glyphosate and heavy metals and pesticides. They're the cleanest, most effective, most conscious bee product company in the world. And again, they are called beekeepersnaturals.com. And with that, my friends, my fellow health and wellness enthusiasts, I will bid you a farewell. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your kind attention. And do yourself, the world, and your friends and family a favor and share this episode with them if you feel so called. God bless.